A golden visa to the UAE with permanent residence for only 23 lakh rupees. This sounds too good to be true, and maybe it is. That's what this video is going to be about when we figure out what is going on. Now, over the last 2 days, every major Indian news outlet, TV channel, newspaper, website has reported that the UAE has launched or is launching a new nomination-based golden visa, which has far lower entry barriers than anything we've seen before. Now, everybody got hugely excited about this. It went viral. People were reacting to how easy this is going to be now. And then there was a wonder about whether or not there was a catch, because the UAE government has not confirmed anything on its website. It has not refuted anything either. The Indian government has not issued a statement or acknowledged this visa that's meant to be specifically for Indians or Bangladeshis. The story has originated at PTI. PTI is a news agency that gives news to newspapers and television channels and websites. Now, PTI has reported this story and quoted somebody called the Riyadh Group, which is a little known company. We're not very familiar with it, which is apparently this is one of the companies that's allegedly been selected to test the new process in India. And this is the company from where the source of the story has come through for PTI. In this video, we're going to unpack everything that was reported, what is likely missing, and whether or not this is a real opportunity or a red flag. And towards the end, we'll take a look at a little bit of philosophy also. So hang in there and let me know what you think of the twist in the philosophy. All right, let's take a look at what is going on. What was the process earlier? Until now, one of the ways to get a golden visa in the UAE from India was to invest in either property or in a business. So if you're investing in property, you had to invest 2 million dirhams or 4.66 crore rupees, or you invest a large amount of money in a business that generates jobs in that country. Now, under the new policy, based on what is reported, this new nomination policy, Indians can now enjoy a golden visa for a fee of 100,000 dirhams, which translates to about 23.3 lakh rupees. And you can also bring your beneficiaries and people, PTI has quoted people involved in the process. Now, it's also said in its story that over 5,000 Indians will apply for this nomination-based visa in the next 3 months. They've not told us how they've arrived at this number. And India and Bangladesh have been selected for the first phase of the testing of this visa. Now, according to the UAE government official website, currently there are 4 categories of visas for foreigners for golden visas. There is the business investor, which I told you about, real estate investor, which I told you about, entrepreneurs who will create jobs, and outstanding specialized talent. It was launched about a year or so ago. So very high performing doctors, scientists, outstanding students, humanitarian pioneers, frontline heroes. So this was opened about a year ago for people who prove that they are extraordinary, will have space in that country. This was part of the UAE's plan to change its image from being a hub for investment and for money pouring through it, to becoming also a hub for talent. They wanted to attract more talent to their country and not just money. Now, in these 4 categories, based on what exists right now, all of them would require investments, but the minimum investment for entrepreneurs was about 1.16 crore Indian rupees to 4 crore rupees if you were just an investor buying real estate. Other categories for professionals needed at least a 11 lakh rupees salary per month with a certificate, and students needed outstanding performance. The UAE's golden visa is not a lifetime thing, right? It enables you to live, work, study, and run a business, and it gives you a renewable visa for 10 years. So the fact that this story also said that it's lifetime raised a few eyebrows, and people are like, what is going on here? Now, after that, there have been some follow-ups by other newspapers as well. So, for example, the Financial Express has quoted Paresh Karya, who is the CEO of Aquest Advisors, who has basically said that the nomination-based visa, according to him, is a rebranding of an existing practice. He said basically the term nomination-based visa will appear new, but it's actually rebranding of an existing process where the UAE was already inviting entrepreneurs, professionals, scientists, and creative and investors. This way, they actually structure the route of how they are selecting these people. And in the last year, there's been a growing interest in Indian professionals, in entrepreneurs and investors seeking long-term residency in the UAE. So obviously, this is something the government is trying to formalize and sort of make easier to attract that talent. Therefore, you might not get, from what we understand now, full entry carte blanche into the UAE for 23 lakh rupees. What you may get with that is a secured nomination, after which you move to the next step and then you prove that you have value to that nation's economy. So this might just be the entry barrier, but there is more of a process to pass after that. Now, I'm going back to the story that PTI has quoted. Just for those of you who don't know, sidebar, okay, PTI, which is Press Trust of India, is a news agency that's not owned by any one person. It is actually a cooperative society of newspapers. So about 450 newspapers in India have gotten together and started the PTI, which basically its job is, it's a not-for-profit, its job is to collect news from the ground and supply it to these newspapers. So now you know when someone says source PTI, where that is from. So newspapers all pay PTI, or websites or the service that I run, we pay PTI for the service of using their stories, and they're considered to be fairly reliable because they're not a very easily excitable organization, since they're not running for profit. Now, coming back to the story of PTI, PTI has quoted Riyad Kamal Ayub, who's the managing director of the Riyadh group that I spoke about earlier, who has said that this is a golden opportunity for Indians. Now, he said the Riyadh group and the VFS have been chosen to vet applicants and then forward them to the UAE authorities. According to him, he said there will be 4 steps. First, the person will apply for a golden visa, and Riyadh group will first check their background, including money laundering cases, criminal record, as well as social media. In the second phase, the background check will also show if the applicant can benefit the UAE market or business activity in culture, finance, trade, science, startup and professional services. After this, the Riyadh group will send the application to the UAE government, which will make its final decision on whether or not this visa is to be granted. And then applicants will have to get pre-approval from India, which they can do apparently without visiting the country. This is what the PTI story has said. Now, there is another angle to this, which is the fact that the UAE and India, which have always been, diplomatically very good friends, have actually upped their relationship in the last couple of years. So the relationships between India and UAE have become stronger because they signed something called a Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, called the CEPA agreement, between the two countries in May 2022. And that is the reason perhaps why the UAE government has decided to test and to start this new initiative with India. So it's possible that the golden visa nomination process is part of the agreement between UAE and India in CEPA, and after the pilot project with India and Bangladesh, it will include other CEPA countries as well. Now, will Indians be excited about this visa? One can easily say yes. Sridhar has written an article in the Indian Express where he basically says that this will actually sit plumb in the middle right now. It's within reach of the upper middle class in India, who could, parents would take a loan for 23-24 lakh rupees and send their child with this visa to the UAE to try for a better life. Salaried professionals, entrepreneurs, digital economy founders, he says particularly will find this interesting because it will provide them, the entire startup founder culture. It will provide them an environment where they can work with institutional clarity. They can, quickly set up businesses. It's easier to sort of plug in a business and get it up and running faster. Regulations are simpler to use. There is, clarity in terms of the legal setup. There is access to capital, and there are ecosystems that allow businesses to grow. But I think the most interesting thing also, if you see what happened on social media, people started comparing this offer of 23.3 lakh rupees with things that are available in India. So someone said that, with this money, you can buy a Mercedes and get a visa, whereas in India, the Mercedes will cost the whole thing because that's the kind of tax that we pay in India. So there were a lot of jokes about the fact that in India, with this amount of money, you can buy the parking to park your car, whereas you could get a visa to go overseas. The UAE, of course, very importantly, which would be the most attractive thing to most people, has no income tax. So you pay GST on every of 5%. It's a flat 5% across the board, but it's levied at every stage of the supply chain. So you pay GST on every service and purchase that you make, but you pay no income tax at all. And so as a result, it becomes really interesting for a lot of Indians because People don't want to pay the kind of income tax that we are paying, which runs upwards of 40%, plus add all of the other tax that you pay, that you're looking at nearly half your take home going away in taxes, and that is something that people would like to avoid. Let's take a look at the numbers though. Henley Private Wealth Migration Report 2024 estimated that 4,300 Indian millionaires are projected to relocate abroad in this year alone, which means that people are making their money in India and then moving overseas. Kotak Private, in collaboration with EY, said nearly 1/4 of India's high net worth individuals are actively evaluating international relocation. So 1/4 of the people who have made a lot of money in India by doing business in India are looking to go overseas. In fact, even the Indian government announced that 18 lakh Indians renounced their citizenship in the last 13 years. But the Ministry of External Affairs said these are largely personal decisions they make to give up their citizenship, and that's not something that India should particularly take personally. Let's take a look at some of the reasons though why people prefer to move overseas after they've made a fair amount of money. One, like I said, obviously lower taxes, lesser red tape, faster regulatory approvals make it easier to run a business overseas. So wealthy Indians running global businesses will have access to international markets, they'll have access to capital and legal, protection. It's less arbitrary, it's less sort of, you don't know what's coming around the corner, so you're able to predict it better. Second is tax optimization. If you're a very rich person, you're not looking at wealth creation as much as you're looking at wealth protection. So you're looking at ways in which you can invest your money, where there's not a lot of tax. There's not a lot of tax eating into the money that you are generating from the wealth that you have. People with children will have access to top-tier universities, better public infrastructure, safety. There's a path to global citizenship if you go overseas. There's a more progressive sort of education, social mobility, things like that they will make available to their children. There is, from a legal point of view, apparently concerns among India's rich about arbitrary policy shifts, concerns about corruption, that they might suddenly tax the rich more, and they might suddenly tax property more, suddenly tax inheritance, and so they feel more secure about moving their money overseas. And then of course, cities like Dubai and Abu Dhabi are associated with status, with luxury living, with a sense of international sort of arrival, and all of these things sort of add up to the fact that moving overseas makes a lot of sense. Let's also compare it if you were to consider any of our big urban cities right now. Anyone, pick one at random. Traffic, waterlogging, mosquitoes, polluted water, polluted air, schools that arbitrarily are not really assuring you of safety and also of quality, and constantly increasing fees, inflation, salaries that are not going up. Generally, it does seem like life in our urban centers is hard. And if you've made enough money to be able to afford this transition, it seems like a good idea to actually do it. And that is what a lot of people are going to be considering. And that is why when this came up yesterday, it just went boom, it went viral. Everybody thought it was an excellent idea. So we're still waiting for a confirmation from the UAE government on the fact that this is something that they're working on. But PTI, as far as I've checked with them, have stuck with their story, and they said, no, this is a verified story. We're very confident of it. I promised you some philosophy, right? And I want to do this, so I want you to hang in there, listen to these three options and tell me which one you think makes sense. And this is the angle that I want to start bringing into news, where we talk about what is going on, but we also take a minute to think about the larger picture. Now, like I said, people who have earlier in like the 70s, the 80s and the 90s, people in India went to Dubai to make money. You went there so that you could make more money, you could send it back home, and you could assure people or your family of a better life, right? Now people are going to Dubai after they've made their money in India to protect their money in order to keep it safe from income taxes. So the philosophical question I'm asking here is, if someone has made money in a country or in a society, are they in any way obligated to give back to that society, to stay and to give back, right? So let's examine three philosophies. The Hindu philosophy, which is the Indian philosophy. There is an African philosophy, and the capitalist philosophy. They're very different from each other. So I want to present them to you and you tell me which one you lean towards. First, let's start with the Hindu philosophy, which is the Indian philosophy. Now, Hindu philosophy says that as an individual, we have to pursue 4 goals in our lifetime. Dharma, which is our moral duty, ethics and righteousness. Artha, which is wealth and material success. Kama, which is desire and pleasure and love. And moksha, which is liberation and spiritual freedom. And these goals are not separate from each other. They're intertwined in your lifetime and you're trying to achieve them. You're encouraged, in fact, to seek out wealth and to seek out life. So Kama and Artha you seek out as a young person, until you reach a certain age. You're supposed to actually achieve these things. Dhan, which is the thought for wealth, is seen as a resource and not a destination. So it's a tool that you get to achieve a stable, ethical life and support society. So wealth is not, in Hindu philosophy, considered sinful. How you earn it, though, matters. So, for example, there is a relationship between dhan and dharma. You must earn your wealth ethically, no cheating, exploitation or greed. And you have to use your wealth responsibly to support those in need, to create livelihoods, to generate other jobs, fund education, temples, hospitals and public work. And so this leads to a balance. If you have dhan and dharma work together, if they don't work together, then you will have imbalance, suffering and decay. So the Mahabharata actually says at one point that artha earned without dharma destroys both artha and dharma, right? So then there is the idea of charity, which is the idea of dhan, which is a sacred duty. So you give 3 kinds of dhan in your life. Annadan, you give Vidya Dan, which is knowledge and you support education, and Arogya Dan, which is you support health. So fundamentally what Hindu philosophy tells us is that you become rich in India, and Dharma tells you to stay grounded, to stay ethical and to give back and to support society. Now Africa has, and this is the second one I'm presenting before you, Africa has a communal philosophy called Ubuntu. Now what Ubuntu says, the core idea of Ubuntu is I am because we are. So basically you are a product of the community that you came from that supported you. You are a product of your society. So success, according to Ubuntu, is never individual. It is relational. Your achievements are a product of your community, shared support. And so you must remain within and uplift the community and reward the community for its support. So you can't leave people behind. So this includes your teachers, your people who worked in your home, people who supported you by paying taxes to fund the institutions that you studied in, people who gave you scholarships. So basically it's an entire community that comes together to make you who you are, and your success and your well-being is never complete as an individual, it's complete as a society. Then there is the capitalist view or the libertarian view, which is also a very popular view. It believes that wealth is an outcome of individual talent, effort and risk-taking. So there's no obligation to stay and give back beyond what the law requires you to do. You should have maximum potential freedom, return on investment and security, even if that means going overseas. So basically capitalism should ideally believe that there should be no international borders for you to be able to achieve your fullest. You should be able to go wherever you need to go in order to get return on investment, in order to get security, and in order to be able to invest your money in such a way as you believe will give you the best return, as long as it is legal. That's what capitalism believes, that philanthropy is purely optional and voluntary and can never be a moral obligation. You earned it, you can take it anywhere, and society doesn't own your success. So these are 3 different philosophies: Ubuntu, the Hindu philosophy of Dharma Dan, and of course the capitalist philosophy of the individual, and the fact that you took those risks, you worked hard, you got where you are. This is entirely yours to enjoy. So while we wait for the government of UAE to give us a confirmation on this new golden visa of 23.3 lakh rupees, a lot of Indians are getting very excited imagining what that life will be like. But I want you to tell me in the comments section which of these 3 philosophies resonates with you the most.